Hey, good morning, everybody. Good afternoon. I know folks are just trickling in throughout the morning, and so I'm going to let them continue to trickle in as we get started. Um, my name is Chaplain Justin Zecker, HCX, and I am honored and pleased to introduce today Chaplain Captain David Alexander, U.S. Navy. This is the fifth edition of the HCX files, and uh, and I am really excited for this one. Many of us pretend to be experts in different fields of study, and today we have a real expert in our field. As I just said, Chaplain Alexander, he is currently working at Navy Medical Services Pacific in San Diego, California. So good morning, sir. Among other things, Chaplain Alexander is the pioneer of the SOCOM Spiritual Fitness Scale, which you'll be familiar with from our Spiritual Fitness Leader Guide. He is a publisher of many great works, studies, articles, including one of my favorites, actually. It's got a totally random title, From Military to Civilian Context: Adaptation of the SOCOM Spiritual Fitness Scale and its Associations with Positive Mental Health and Depression in Poland. However, the section on the Human Performance Optimization Framework and Spiritual Fitness was really educational for me, and the way in which you, Chaplain Alexander, defined the different spiritual fitness, spirituality, and resilience was actually eye-opening for me. So I appreciate that work. I believe you're also an Orthodox chaplain, and then why have invited you here today is you're also the creator of the ABSR, the Assessment Battery for Spiritual Performance or Spiritual Readiness. The ABSR has been adopted and fully integrated into the Navy. If you're familiar with RMAT, it's an integral part of that process and how chaplains intake and care for sailors and Marines. It is ABSR is liked, maybe even loved by SOCOM. I hear SOCOM and SOCOM chaplains praise the assessment all of the time, and I suspect that the ABSR will play a prominent role in the future, especially with regard to the Department of War's revamped Warfighter Performance Optimization Total Force Fitness Framework. So there's a lot of goodness in this assessment, and we believe that assessments are critically important to helping us and others understand where we are spiritually and how we can care and be cared for. And so this is a really important hour that we have together, and I will stop talking in just one second. Push it over to you, sir. It's not me that came to here. It's you. But I got one final administrative note. If you have a question, please put it in the chat, and then we can address those. Either we can address them after Chaplain Alexander is finished, or he can address them as he wants during the presentation. So that's all for me. Again, as a reminder, we will be recording this session for those who weren't able to attend, and we'll be publishing it on the HC Hub in just a week or so. So that's it for me. I'm going to pass it over to you, Chaplain Alexander. The floor is yours, sir.
Hi, everyone. I'm David Alexander. It's good to be with you. I wish I could see your faces. Maybe I'm the only one in uniform here, so this might as well be all Navy people. I wouldn't know. Could I ask you to do something with me? Could you find a blank sheet of paper, really even scrap paper, totally fine, and a pen or a pencil? And let's just take the ABSR to start. Why not? I'm going to ask you 19 questions, and if you could just number your blank sheet of paper from 1 to 19. I'll ask you 19 questions, and I'd like you to answer on a scale of 1 to 10. Really easy to think because, I don't know, this is everywhere in our society. Scale of 1 to 10 this or 1 to 10 that. Think about how you'd answer each of these questions on a scale of 1 to 10, just in the context of your whole life. So I'll give you the first question as an example. Let's see here. I look to God for strength, support, and guidance. Maybe you felt strongly about that question, more strongly in the past than you do now. Maybe the opposite is true. But thinking of the course of your whole life, how would you answer that right now, today? Your current attitude, your current belief structure, your current lens for viewing the world and experiencing the world. I look to God for strength, support, and guidance on a scale of 1 to 10. Just put that number, whatever it is, next to number 1. And we'll do this 19 times. Okay, here's the second question. I've decided to place my life under God's direction. Scale of 1 to 10. And here I might say, because I love to do things relationally, even scale administration, I might say, some of you believe in a higher power. You don't speak about God in these terms from your faith tradition. A couple of those traditions come to mind, but I don't want to have to put them all out there. We'll say God as you understand God, a higher power, however you would articulate that. For the purposes of the scale, see if you can adopt your own uh, context and belief system. If I was talking to an auditorium full of people, I might actually ask them, even if you're not sure about God, you have a low level of religiosity, don't be afraid of putting a lower number. You're not going to be held unready or unfit. It helps us build the backside of the distribution. If only the people that feel strongly about God answer the questions about God, we're going to have a high ceiling effect, and it's going to skew our understanding of the total force. So don't worry about a low number being bad. Just put yourself in there. Okay. So that was number 2. I've decided to place my life under God's direction. Let's go to number 3. I feel God's love for me. You're answering this in the context of your life, but today. Number, number 4, I know what my life is about. Number 5, I can find meaning and purpose in everyday experiences. On a scale of 1 to 10, the context of your whole life, but also right now today. Number 6, I have a core set of beliefs, ethics, and values that give my life a sense of meaning and purpose. I'll say that one again. I have a core set of beliefs, ethics, and values that give my life a sense of meaning and purpose on a scale of 1 to 10. Now, sometimes when I'm doing this in front of a large group of people relationally like this, instead of an online survey or some other way, people will want to have me interpret the question for them. I want to avoid doing that because some of the dynamism of the scale itself is having people turn within and reflect on the question and answer wherever they are. That actually helps us again in the total distribution. So we don't want to interpret the question for them, but restating the question, no problem, and restating the context of the question, no problem. Number 7, I'm morally committed to doing the greatest good I can for other human beings on a scale of 1 to 10. Number 8, respecting and valuing other human beings is one of my highest priorities. I'll say that again. Respecting and valuing other human beings is one of my highest priorities. Okay, now on your sheet, go down to number 9. Being of service to others is an important source of meaning in my life. Being of service to others is an important source of meaning in my life. Let's go to number 10. We're just past halfway now. In my life, hope outweighs anxiety. In my life, hope outweighs anxiety. So think about that question in the context of your whole life. Different times in your life, you'd answer that different ways. Where are you today? Next, number 11, I feel hopeful. Say that question again. I feel hopeful. Number 12, hope improves the quality of my life. Hope improves the quality of my life. So you're answering this on a scale of 1 to 10, the total context of your life. But how would you answer today? Number 11, I feel hopeful. I feel hopeful. No doubt this can change day to day, week to week, month to month. Think of the strength of that answer across the whole of your life, the lowest and the highest times you might have answered that question on either side. Where are you today? Number 13, although I feel bad at first when I mess up, over time, I can give myself some slack. Let me say that again. Although I feel bad at first when I mess up, over time, I can give myself some slack. Number 14, learning from bad things that I've done helps me overcome them. I'll say that again. Learning from bad things that I have done helps me overcome them. Number 15, with time, I am understanding of others for the mistakes they have made. I'll say that again. With time, I am understanding of others for the mistakes they've made. No doubt this also changes from time to time. So try to answer that question in the context of your whole life, but today. Number 16, when someone disappoints me, I can eventually move past it. When someone disappoints me, I can eventually move past it. And now the final three. Number 17, I have so much in life to be thankful for. No doubt this changes on a regular basis. Where are you today? I have so much in life to be thankful for. Number 18, I am grateful to a wide variety of people. I am thankful to a wide variety of people. And lastly, as I grow older, I find myself more able to appreciate the people, events, and situations that have been a part of my life history. It's a little wordy, I'll say that again. As I get older, as I grow older, I find myself more able to appreciate the people, events, and situations that have been a part of my life history. Okay, that's 19 questions. Now, I'm going to ask you to get out your phones. I know. Please, if you could open up your calculator function. Those of you who are on flip phones, to protect your minds and hearts, I'm grateful to you for your example. Do you have a calculator? Is there anything you can use to calculate? I would like you to do this. Average together your scores for questions or items 1 through 3. And then divide by 2. I'm sorry. First, you have to average, right? So you're going to average all 3 of your numbers together, divide by 3 to get the average, and then you're going to divide by 2 to get on a 5-point scale. So if we made that calculator error, please consider it my fault. I'm going to take those numbers on your 1 to 3, add them up, divide by 3 to get your average, and then divide by 2. And if you could just write the letters PCG and that number somewhere on your blank piece of paper. Okay, we're going to do the same thing for questions, items 4 through 6. Add those 3 up, divide by 3 to get the average, and divide by 2 to get on the 5-point scale, and take that number and label that number MPV, Mike Papa Victor. Okay, you're going to take now items 7 through 9 and average those numbers, add them together, divide by 3, and divide by 2 to get on a 5-point scale. Label this number SSO. Okay, now moving on, we're going to look at items 10, 11, and 12. Average those together. Adding them together, dividing by 3 to get the average, and then dividing by 2 to get on a 5-point scale. And label that number HOP, Hotel Oscar Papa. All right, forgiveness is tricky. There's 4 items for forgiveness, 13, 14, 15, and 16. Take those 4, add them together, divide by 4 to get the average, and then divide by 2 to get on your 5-point scale. And you're going to label that number FOR. And lastly, items 17, 18, and 19. Find the average, add them together, divide by 3. And now divide by 2 to get on a 5-point scale. You're going to label that number GRA. Okay. So if this has worked, and forgive me, folks who are coming in late, you might have missed a bit of an opportunity there. Let me turn to slide 5. These are norming profiles. So this is a collection of a little over 1,000 military service members who have taken this scale to give you a comparison for your own scores. If I was doing this in an auditorium with a group of people at INDOC, or if I was doing this with a small team as they're preparing to go somewhere and do something, and we want to get a baseline for them in terms of spiritual readiness, we have our 6 factors. You can read them across this: PCG, personal connection with God or a higher power. SSO, this is the trait of serving and sacrificing for others. Preparation to do that is the altruistic impulse. GRA is the gratitude indicator. HOP is hope. FOR is forgiveness. It's a bifactor subfactor. That means it both helps us understand a person's poised to receive forgiveness and offer it. And MPV, the pursuit of meaning, purpose, and values. Okay, so you've got these 6 factors. You can walk people through it just like I did. I like doing it on a blank piece of paper because people stay with you. It helps with validity. You end up getting a better analytical sample because most people are tracking with you. Some people won't if it's a big auditorium, but a lot will. More so than if they just do it on an iPad or do an electronic scale format. So you've talked them through it. It's been relational. They're seeing you in action and seeing you as a professional who does their work from evidence-based to this degree. We're not replacing the heart of chaplaincy. It's just one line of information that helps us understand and tailor what we're doing. You can take them through these 6, and these are percentile groupings by the 20 not by double decade. So by 20, 40, 16, 80%. I might ask you, where are you right now for SSO? Where did you score? Are you in the 40th percentile? Then that doesn't mean you're not ready. It just means look against a nice, robust group of your peers. That tends to have a balancing effect. And do you have some room for growth here? And if you do, I might tell an auditorium full of people, it's a good idea to talk with a chaplain. Chaplains are many things. We are spiritual readiness coaches. That's a way of talking about one aspect of our work. We help people strengthen their spiritual readiness for adversity by considering discrete categories. This doesn't represent all of human spirituality, surely not. But it's a nice little array. And if I ask most chaplains in most branches of service, does this sound something like your work? Helping people to develop and sustain a practice, a lifestyle of gratitude, even when in conflict with adversity, helping people maintain hope in the face of difficulty, helping people protect this special human desire, human intuition, human drive to serve and sacrifice for the good of others and not just oneself, to help people stay personally connected with God according to their tradition and their worldview, and helping people stay daily aligned with their highest virtues and values to enable values-based living. If I just, most chaplains are saying that sounds like my work. There's other things that you do for sure, but these things are there. So we can tell people if you're measuring just a little low against any of these, or you're measuring above average, that's great. How do we talk about maintaining that edge that you have in your life? I don't have a slide here, but we do have plenty of evidence through our various analyses, comparative analysis, correlative analysis, with other wellness traits that tell us that each one of these traits is extremely well correlated with very important wellness traits that are more general, like protecting against loneliness, general quality of life, perceptions of stress, familial expression and familial commitment, self others focused living. And these are staggering traits. They totally impact every kind of wellness and health outcome, and they're correlated well with our traits. And correlation means co-relationship. So if I tell you that service and sacrifice, a lifestyle of service and sacrifice, has a very strong negative correlation with loneliness, you should know that people who are more sacrificial in their life, they report lower levels of loneliness. And that matters. I don't know a chief master sergeant in the Air Force, a sergeant major in the Marine Corps. I don't know anybody who doesn't care about that, right? So these traits matter, and we're interested in helping our service members strengthen themselves along these traits. We don't need these numbers only to do that, but it certainly can help. And people like taking assessments. If you haven't noticed, many airmen that you know have taken the Harry Potter assessment to decide which house they're in. I mean, how silly is that? But people like doing that. And if we are engaging, and if our items are engaging people from the total humanist, agnostic, atheist side of the spectrum to the most committed religious people, and everybody can be enfranchised. They may not all take the God questions, the questions with the Shuma theistic worldview, but everybody can take most of these questions, and we can have follow-on discussions. If I went to the next slide, maybe even the next one. Here we go. This is a little grainy. I'll just tell you what it is. This is a little companion tool that we developed when we were doing the SOCOM spiritual fitness scale with a bunch of my friends and colleagues at Marine Corps Special Operations Command. Looking through these traits, there's a bunch of questions that go above the top of the grid, as we call it. Do I measure higher or lower in this trait than the field? Whatever norming profiles you're using. And I strongly suggest if we have people take the assessment, we give them something to compare themselves to. How has my commitment to this trait perhaps changed in the last 6 to 18 months? It's a great coaching question. Many people just don't sit down and think about this. I can tell you from a very short, and I'm not going to give you a lot of information about the actual field, the participants, the correspondent, the respondents, but I was working with small teams for a little while that would push out and come back within about 90 days. And we found over time that they definitely waned in service and sacrifice. They were a highly trained, highly idealistic force. And when they went out to save the world. In the time they spent attempting to save the world, they became discouraged, right? I mean, people don't always want your help, though you want to help them. Many things that you hope you're going to be able to do are frustrated by many internal and external realities. They would wane in their altruism when they came home, but it was an extremely tight-knit group of people, and they had 6 to 9 months typically between cycles of going back out. And amazingly, we found their ability to bounce back was very high in that particular trait. But it was really important for the leaders to know we're seeing something here. This is an idealistic group that scores higher in service and sacrifice than a lot of their peers in the military, but they wane when they come home, and somehow we're bouncing back well. That led us to create some focus groups and be able to get into it, to ask the particular operators and support staff, what do you think about what we see here? Why do you think you tend to wane? And how is it that you bounce back? That was very informative even for spiritual readiness programming. How can we support what's already going well? Other groups we've seen, when they wane in service and sacrifice, you could lose that inspiration for quite some time. And so that's another, that there's always a Sherlock Holmes aspect to understanding the readiness of our force. We have numbers, and it's hard to do a lot of things without numbers. They're anchor points, but we don't stop with numbers. Nobody should stop with numbers. You don't go to a doctor's office or to psych, mental health, and do an initial battery, a readiness questionnaire, and then they just diagnose you and start. I mean, you have to have appended interviewing. People have to understand what I am seeing here. How do you see it? And how can we collaborate together for your growth and protection? That's the work of evidence-based spiritual readiness, as far as I know. And so this coaching grid kind of gives us an idea. Another question: what might help me strengthen commitments to this trait in the short or long term? We could be talking about any of the traits that you want to talk about. What could threaten my ability to maintain my commitment to this trait, my strength in this trait? And then a little section for goals. Now this is tiny, it's one page. You couldn't, unless you're like able to write micro, it's an idea for you. How you use it, if you create an electronic interface for it. So many people are so creative. I don't do a whole lot of transition. I'm more on the development side. Sky's the limit. All of this is in the public domain. You use it however you want. If I was to go back just a little bit, I don't know how much you care about where this comes from. I think even my first slide was saying there's things we're not going to be able to do. We're not going to probably be able to talk here in this short time on the nature and the process of psychometric design and testing. Happy to talk with any of you about that. I do think it's important for us to talk to some degree at a lower resolution, from a zoomed out perspective, on why we, of all people, as chaplains, do not want to get into any kind of model where we are commodifying the human person. And human performance, that is its main, to my mind, that is its main danger. All the human performance frameworks, they commodify human beings as a rule, implicitly. It's part of the human performance idea. Every person has a performance possibility, and the waning and waxing strength of that person and their performance ability impacts the whole. We begin thinking of people as cogs in a wheel. And so we need to protect against that. I think chaplains naturally do that. I also think that's one reason why I almost always suggest we pair quantitative data that we might find using an assessment with interviewing and focus grouping. It doesn't take that long. And many people like to sit in on focus groups. Maybe not, they might not all love command climate surveys, but chaplains are natural interviewers, I find, natural focus group leaders, and tend to be able to get people talking, to regulate the environment so people who are talking a lot can be brought back a little bit without being shamed. People who aren't speaking much can be coaxed into participation. Chaplains, often without training, are masterful at this. And just getting feedback. Feedback is the breakfast of champions. Just getting feedback on who your people are and what they need. There is no way to outsource that. And there's no way to get it at at a very high echelon level without it being done very well at a lower echelon with the people level. So anyway, I wanted to talk to you about what is it, where did it come from? I went a little bit backwards because I thought maybe something to get us together and actually take the scale and see what it looks like. These are the 6 traits that you've seen. 3 of them, their origins are with the SOCOM Spiritual Fitness Scale. In that sense, the ABSR is a fundamental update to the SSFS. Doesn't mean you can't use SSFS. It's not that shorter to use the SSFS, and there's only 3 traits instead of 6, but it's still useful and being used in a number of contexts. All of those 3 are made more concise in the ABSR project. So we basically took the 3 highest performing items in a new study with our friends from the Navy Research Lab. They spend a lot of time with an active duty sample down in Florida, mostly Navy, some Air Force, because some of it happened at the flight school there, and there are some Air Force instructors and things, and some Air Force support staff. and Marine Corps and Coast Guard also all go through that one flight training center. So is it mostly Navy, but some other services mixed in. The three highest performing items from the SSFS we kept, and we sliced away, or we bracketed the other items just for the sake of having a concise, more multi-factor, adding more factors to. And this is where the three others came from. The Perceptions of Hope scale, which is a really well-known and sturdy scale that's been used in many places. We took three high-performing items from that scale. For the forgiveness of others and receiving forgiveness subscales, that came from the Heartland Forgiveness Scale. Again, just a really great, sturdy scale that's been used for decades in many different contexts, just continues a strong evidence base. And then for gratitude, we took the gratitude questionnaire, McCullough, same thing. We tried to take scales that were already in the spiritual paradigm and were being used well and in many contexts. So essentially, this is kind of an aggregated scale project and a scale alignment project to take things that we already had and to see if we could develop and find sturdy enough for good use a large composite scale, which covered a number of factors, but still concise enough that we could we could deploy it almost anywhere. 19 questions just isn't that much. For the questions related to God, we sort of insist, and I think there's two questions about validity here that we can talk about. We sort of insist that you use a not applicable option for each of the God questions. And then if somebody opts out of one of those questions because the questions just are too dissonant with their worldview, no problem. You can still score that scale. If they opt out of two and you're down to one, you just don't score them on that scale. With 6 scales overall, it doesn't affect aggregate scoring that much. So if you do comparisons, for instance, of people who scale out of the God questions and people who scale in, it's a nice balance with 6 total factors. Really easy to do that without finding major changes in comparison because somebody scaled out of an entire subscale, which has a high ceiling effect already. As I mentioned, people tend to answer if they believe in God. There are people with lower levels of religiosity, but in our military, in my experience, it's more likely to find religious people answering with moderate or even greater strength to the God questions. And then you've got a group of between 20 and 27% typically, that's what we're seeing, that don't want to answer these questions at all. When it comes to that, there have been times when we were criticized, especially during the SSFS, of using the God questions at all. And our counter argument to that was a reverse validity challenge. We found that in our exit interviews early on, when we were in beta testing for the SSFS, people that believe in God sort of hate spiritual scales that don't mention God. And they actually don't finish them at a surprisingly high rate. And I think at a higher rate than those who don't believe in God, who get a chance to opt out, but they're still often willing to take the rest of the scale, especially if the scale administration is sensitive to that. You won't all recognize your voice in all of these questions. These scale projects begin with many, now that we have 6 together, many, many thousands of questions. And the winnowing happens sort of by the test population. We're running analyses on the strength and predictability of how people are answering questions. We can tell whether a question doesn't mean much to anyone, and that gets cut away. We can start to tell after a while when a question really, the way it's phrased is an outlier. People answer it so disparately, it's actually not able to tell as much, and those get cut away. What you end up with, trying to phrase the same sorts of things in so many different ways, the items that remain at the very end, it's been a sort of dance, to be honest, between the researchers and the end test population, which you want to have many, many thousands of people. 7,000 people for the SSFS, all said and done. Not all of that was an analytic sample, but that's a large group of people taking the items. And what happens through the iterations is that the researchers are asking questions in as many ways as possible, and with a diverse end test population, letting you know whether these things are descriptive of the way they see spirituality. So the end products may not be a question you particularly like, or you would have phrased it differently, but we can all have some appreciation for the fact that it sort of is the voice of the people in tandem with the voice of the researchers who are trying to create every possibility for the people to have influence on what items remain. And then if we do that well, we have something that has community validity, meaning you listen to the questions and you don't hate them as chaplains. That's actually very important to me. But on the other hand, people that you are administering the scale to, there's many, depending on who they are, there's always going to be items they would not have phrased that way. But it is sufficient to keep them at the table and answering the questions in a way that is meaningful for them. Another way we could talk about this, honestly, is that if you talk to an atheist about altruism, and you talk to someone with a very strong theistic worldview about atheism, about altruism, they are both answering the question in a way that's meaningful to them, is what I find. But they're not exactly at a very high resolution answering the question in the same way. Because most theists, their idea of sacrifice, if the stronger their religiosity, their idea of sacrifice is influenced by their relationship with God, serving others. And for atheists, it can tend to be more humanistic. It's still a meaningful question to everyone, and it holds the aggregate together. But this is what I mean. This is the dance that we're doing. So if you're wondering, oh, I don't like that question, I'll just change it. Well, these things take so many years to develop and definitely get through peer review. With ABSR, we have good testing data, and the report in through the Navy funding that got us there is all intact, but we're still in peer review. It takes a long time just to get through all the rounds of peer review to get to publication. It takes so long, though, in the test phases. The SSFS was way more than 2 years. A lot of that was starting. We had a head start in the ABSR, but it takes a long time. And these questions are questions that statistically load together coherently. And we found we didn't make up the traits. We tried to describe the latent factors which become evident as more and more questions are loading together in the analysis. So we get a sense people are answering these questions in a related way, and that signals to us an underlying latent factor in the psychometric development process. So don't have time to get into that a whole lot more, but the questions didn't come from nowhere. They're not just my big idea questions. They've come through a robust testing process, and for that reason, we can correlate people's answers on these scales to any number of other outcome scales or wellness scales because they're created in the same way. They load properly, and in the correlation, everything holds together for the most part to be able to make a good correlation or not. So I hope we didn't get bogged down there. One of the reasons I did I relationally, hopefully for those of us that weren't too late coming in, led us through the process of taking the scale is so that we wouldn't have to strain and try to make sense of this slide. This is just the 19 items. It's how they look. It's a 3-page score sheet, and I'm sure Justin can get that to you, or any number of people can get that to you. I just sort of smushed it all into one slide. This is what it looks like. It's on a 5-point scale. And that's cut off a little bit on the middle there, but it's on a 5-point scale. And when I do it relationally, I have people answer on a scale of 1 to 10 and divide by 2, just because I think people naturally answer on a scale of 1 to 10. And then it's even nicer. You get a higher resolution answer. People can answer, for instance, a 3, and that would not, 3 on a scale of 1 to 10 doesn't perfectly transfer onto a 5-point scale. So you get into some more nuance that way. But typically, this is how we do it. Almost all wellness scales are on 5 points and have some kind of step down like this from strongly disagree to strongly agree. You'll see on these subscales only the God items, the first 3 items we have with a not applicable attached there. Okay, now here's another idea, maybe the last idea, and then we'll get to questions. Since I can't see your face, it's easier when I can see your faces. I can tell whether you care about a certain thing I'm talking about, whether you're saturated, whether you're distracted. I can't really see you, so I'll just go on a little bit. Maybe this will be the last new picture that I show here. Um, in the performance paradigm, there are at least 3 discrete phases. And it's pretty hard to understand readiness as a category unless you understand readiness as a phenomenon, because readiness is a human performance idea, actually. It is in the scientific literature anyway. I guess colloquially, you can say readiness and mean a lot of different things. But when you're talking to your peer professionals in medicine, in social performance, in psychological performance, you need to understand that this is a human performance category. And when we talk about the performance cycle or the performance spectrum, we're talking about at least 3 discrete categories, all of which we need to reckon with, humbly, I say, if we're going to be serious about developing spiritual readiness as a top shelf paradigm. In many ways, I think our system as it is now holds together pretty tightly. The social performance people are very far behind. It's hard to even identify in a clear way, in a cogent way, who they ought to be. It's more of a coalition of the willing. Psychological performance, most of their work is outcome based, and performance categories are trying to pull us left of bang to a readiness stance. Still, there's nuance there, and I want to show you that in this slide. If you want to think of these 3 phases, you can call them different things. Preparation and readiness are synonymous, really, but since we use readiness for the overall, I like to stay with preparation to label this phase. Sustainment is obvious. You are now in direct contact with adversity, and you are focusing on making sure that your functional and good qualities are not damaged and do not degrade in the face of adversity. Also, within sustainment, some new growth does emerge. We can keep our mind on that. Recovery is the phase in which we are, let's say, tending to any loss, tending to any downgrading of our spiritual stance, while we already begin to look to the horizon for our state of preparation for the next adversity. If I were to take these traits and walk them through the performance continuum, it may look like this. In preparation for adversity, we are working to help strengthen people's connection with God. In the sustainment phase, we are helping people endure in their faith through adversity. In the recovery phase, we are helping them reconnect with God, refresh their faith, stabilize their spiritual life if there has been any destabilization, and looping back, becoming optimally connected with God, because the next adversity is always coming in this life. And you can walk down through these traits, pursuing meaning and purpose to enduring in purpose through adversity, to recovering meaning and re-excavating purpose. This does happen to the warfighter. The warfighter can lose his purpose in the midst of operations because of many confounding variables. It is difficult. You are outside of your normal spiritual home and spiritual roots, and there are many pressures on you. And some people can find that they don't feel the same purpose on their way back home, or when they first arrive back home. And so chaplains that's where we are, aren't we? We're working with them to bear their experiences and to refresh that purpose. And you can go through each one of these. So just showing you, these traits track, but our activities may shift. Our sensitivities certainly shift as we move from phase to phase throughout the readiness paradigm. How can I use the ABSR? I think I've already shown you some of this. We establish baselines. We can establish individual baselines. We can establish small team and unit baselines. And then we can, of course, through sequential assessment, we can see whether whether teams are waning or waxing in their preparation, and that can inform our ministry. I'm not going to spend a lot of this time here, but I do think it's worth us talking about interpreting data with focus groups. There are so many experts in the Air Force Chaplain Service, Chaplain Corps, who can do focus groups in their sleep. They're so gifted at it, naturally gifted, but also really understand some of the fundamentals and transitioning data into standard questions, getting a good sample population together, and really getting great actionable feedback. I know you already have those people, so I don't want to speak to you as if you don't. But I believe this is probably a missing link for a lot of us. And I'm not sure focus groups without anchor points in numerical data are as helpful in terms of their ability to produce disciplined, actionable feedback in spiritual readiness planning. It's good for us to have data that give us a good sense of which questions to ask so that we're optimizing. You can't go into a focus group session with 50 questions. You have to be careful and curate that experience. And the data help us to tailor our questions to better understand a phenomenon we think we're seeing in the data, and then to, even in the focus groups, begin to talk with people about what they think, what we think as the spiritual readiness professionals, par excellence, right, that we are, how to move forward. So the last thing I think I have here is advising key leaders. I just have found in my own humble experience, this probably is not true across the board. I don't know if we could generalize it, everywhere, that leaders just pay a different kind of attention when I'm bringing them serious feedback that is mixed method. Serious numbers because I have carefully practice assessment, not 100% contact, but with a nice healthy segment, maybe 15% of the force, depending on the size of the force. And then had really good representative tailored focus groups from those respondents, and maybe from some without, one control group without. And then I'm giving the commander, I have a hunch, I have an informed idea about where to go next in our spiritual readiness programming, because I have done some serious assessment work. I don't believe any of our peer professionals are doing something so crisp as this. Here's what I found in assessment. Here are some interpretations that I was looking for when I went into focus groups. Here's some confirmations and expansions of those ideas from the thematic feedback. And here now is my suggestion to you as commander. This is something we need to pay attention to. And I might here bring in, if there's one particular subscale or two, what that shows in the correlation. I believe that we need to combat loneliness. You believe it, I believe it, we all believe it. But I can tell you there's a spiritual trait or two which is strongly negatively correlated with loneliness. And we are a little behind some of the other groups out there, units out there. And I have a proposal. And whatever the proposal is up to you. You're the chaplain. You have given a very careful and powerful, cogent, well-reasoned and well-researched argument to your CO. And I don't think you actually did a lot of things you didn't want to do. Some chaplains hate numbers prima facie. But when you start giving assessments in a relational way, you often come to love your people and understand them better, and they get to interact with you as a chaplain and as a professional. Your natural warmth will come out. And then in the focus groups, it can be the most fun that you have on that given day to do focus group work. You're getting to know your people better all the time. They're relating to you in a different way. And so this work you've done to provide feedback to your commander is just a total win for you across the board. I don't believe you've traded the heart of chaplaincy at all. And that's my goal, maybe. I have a small role in developing spiritual readiness tools and ideas. It really is very small. Even my own chaplain corps, I love these people. I hear things they're doing. I didn't know what was going on, great. Everybody should be working on this in a creative way, wherever they are throughout the echelons. But my small role from the very beginning, working with a lot of scientists who are not chaplains, was we can't lose the heart of chaplaincy. And it's not just about community validity that chaplains will hate our work and that will scuttle it. That is true, by the way. But secondly, we're here to help these people. Chaplains are irreplaceable. And spiritual readiness is a unique aspect of human readiness, of total readiness. Unique, interdependent, maybe. I mean, yes, these co-relationships are real, but we have excavated core spiritual traits which belong to us. There's overlap, but they belong primarily to us. And we are the guardians, the stewards, the chief stewards of spiritual readiness. I want chaplains to feel as if they can embrace some of these things and have fun with it and not feel as if they're being sucked into some other kind of work, fundamentally other kind of work. So now there's 10 minutes left. I don't remember if Justin told me leave 20 minutes for questions, and if so, forgive me. But yes, that's my presentation for today.
That's awesome. The time is yours, sir. So if you want to leave 10 minutes, 20, 30 for questions, that is all good. We had one question in the chat, but I think you answered it. Somebody asked about how do we account for subjectivity of a person's evaluation of themselves? And I think you answered it, but I'll leave that question out there for you while I give folks an opportunity to provide more questions if they have them.
Yeah, here's the truth. Here's the truth. All metrical testing of this kind, which tests attitudes and worldview, all of it is subjective. But I'll also say, aside from personality testing, basically all psychometric testing, period, is subjective. And it's important for us to know that there is objectivity that emerges from a large aggregate of subjectively reported experiences, right? That's where objectivity can arise, because all these people are reporting something subjective, but the larger the population, they're telling us something we have to take seriously. There's objectivity, in other words, of understanding the cogency of the feedback and the connection, the constellation of the feedback into an undeniable theme. It doesn't mean we have to agree with everything we hear, but we have to take it seriously. So you're right about that. But also, there's objectivity that emerges in focus groups to another degree for the same reason. It's a second, for those of you doing your land nav, out during chaplain school, whatever when you're trying to create back azimuths and to triangulate your position, you want at least two fixed positions, because one is weak. So it gives you another fixed position. There's objectivity of a sort that emerges from the aggregated subjectivity of psychometric responses and the aggregated subjectivity of focus groups when you see thematic connections and there's confirmation that the people are trying to tell us something. In the same way, you could go into mental health tomorrow and you could present symptoms in the behavioral health tech. I'm not sure what this is called in the Air Force, but everybody's got something like this. We'll give you a scale to take. We'll give you something in your intake. And that is very subjective. It's how you feel. It's things you think you're experiencing. But then you sit down with the professional and they walk through your answers and some diagnostic questions. You all are both speaking subjectively to each other, but you're not lost in inner subjectivity because you have some touchstones. And that brings some objectivity to the discussion. That's a way of talking. I hope that's not confusing to you. It's a great question. And the way I think about that is we should keep that in mind. We shouldn't overstate the importance of scaling. I just think we shouldn't dismiss it or undervalue it either. It really helps undergird and inform the next thing we do. And at the very point of contact, aside from relational assessment, that is a point of contact. Focus groups, you're with those people. But the larger point of contact for intervention, for activities you're doing to specifically strengthen readiness, that's your intuition as a professional, but you're armed with a number of things. That's like many other kinds of professionals. The psychologists are doing that, your physicians are doing that. They do exams, they develop an idea of what seems to be the problem with you, hopefully, and then they work with you as a professional, but still collaboratively with you towards a change that can help you. So
Great. There's a couple of questions, a couple more that rolled in. So the first one I think should be a quick answer, but I think you answered it, but I'll ask it again. Is this still in peer review or is it peer reviewed?
Yeah, it is still in. Okay, so there's a couple ways of talking about this. First of all of the findings have been validated and have been conveyed to the Navy Research Laboratory, and there is a formal technical report already written and issued. So we would not feel great about rolling this out until that had happened. The peer review process, which is important, especially in the humanities, that is the major testing of your ideas. It's not quite the same with us. The major testing of our ideas are statistical in nature, and then the technical report, if it is received, because it can be returned by the research psychologists who run this section, who are wonderful in the Navy, by the way, who run this section for us. When they receive the report, that is an internal peer review. So yeah, we feel totally confident in our findings and the usefulness of this. Peer review in the harder sciences of spirituality, which is not that hard, that's more about journal fit and communication and conveyance to the audience. So that's just going to take time. It always takes time. So that's my two-part answer to that. It is sturdy and trustworthy, and it's useful, but we're not giving you all of the tables and everything else in the technical report, because that's part of the contract during peer review. While a journal is reviewing, they hold on to that, and then once it's published, which we hope be sometime in the fall, but God knows, then it's just in public domain forever. Use it however you want. So that's my response.
Somebody asked, Chaplain Alexander, can I reach out for information on sharing this with my Christian counseling cohort?
Yeah, you can share this. Justin, is there a place where the scale sheets and then some introductory norming profiles can hang? Like, do you have some kind of shared point?
We do. We have them posted on our Chaplain Corps Resource Hub. So folks can go find those there.
Yeah, I have to ask your forgiveness a little bit because I have 3 jobs. I do a job here with Navy Medicine. I'm also the faculty chair for CPE. We have a CPE program where we teach and we have 7 different programs. And then I'm also a partner with the Navy Research Lab. So I'm always struggling to communicate with people. I love you all. I want to be in touch with you. But my time can be somewhat limited. So if there is a way of just hanging these things, of course you have my permission to use it. You can let everybody know it's still awaiting publication in peer review. But the technical report is received and it's useful. We believe. Wouldn't be saying this if I didn't think so. You can use it however. If you have specific, really technical questions that you feel like will really be important, crucial for you in terms of being able to use this or make a decision about using it, then yes, you can reach out to me and I will try, be patient with me. I'll try to get back to you within a few days.
Sweet. We got like 2 minutes left, so I'll ask just one more question. There's 2 questions. I feel like they're both really long answers. So I'll just ask one and then take all the time you need. And then we'll just close it out. The question is, can you explain where the norming profiles relate to the 3 categories of preparation, sustainment, and recovery?
Yeah, they're not norming profiles by category. Okay, it's a great question. It's important for us to remember those 3 categories are mostly important for personal coaching, which to me is still the most important thing we do as chaplains. I mean, they are attention to the individual, right? Just conceptualizing, but also during deployments, we can be thinking, an awful lot of people are going through the same adversity together. I need to shift my stance a little bit with this particular group of people, and we're thinking about sustainment. In another sense, though, everybody is in all these 3 phases all the time, right? So somebody could be really struggling at home, but it's gonzo at work. It's just great at work. And so they may be very ready in terms of one aspect of their life and really struggling on the other. Someone could have a tremendous loss in one area of their life and be in recovery mode, really struggling spiritually. In other places in their work, for instance, maybe in the team environment, their ability to sacrifice for each other, their adherence to the core values of the unit and their highest kind of sense of purpose really aligned well right now. And so in a way, our our work with them becomes mixed. There's one aspect of their life where we're trying to deal with strengthening, protecting spiritual traits, and another we're seeing them in a great place of strength and trying to. So there is a limited, to some degree, there's a limited ability to break those three things down. When it comes to norming profile, we're just asking a bunch of people wherever they are right now, and 500 strong or 700 strong, just to get a nice aggregate picture. All of those people are in different places doing different things in their lives. So um, why I like to talk about the stances across the performance is just to keep us from being too static. We're saying readiness, but the same traits, they shift in a lot of ways in terms of personal need and our energies and activities throughout the lifespan of what people are going through. You could call it the adversity lifespan also, from preparing for adversity, just meeting the face of adversity, to enduring and to recovering and being ready for the next thing in life. So good catch. That's true. Many of these things, they're living and they're so fluid, and I'm trying to break them down for us so that we can see the complexity. That's maybe a good way of saying it. We can see the complexity of spiritual readiness in its many faces, but in reality, it is really together. It's really conflated. I just feel like when something's conflated and vague and just so big, it is important for us to try to isolate some of the component parts just to be clearer in our minds about the whole. When something is conflated and blurry, I want to clarify and separate, knowing that in real life it's going to look more conflated and blurry. But for a moment, we have some clarity and we can see the complexity of what's required of us and what these traits actually look like. I hope that's an adequate answer. It's the one I have anyway.
Sweet. Well, thank you, Chaplain Alexander. I really appreciate it. I know your time is precious and valuable, and this is a really great presentation. I learned so much, and I really appreciate it. And I know it's of tremendous value to what we do as chaplains. So I appreciate the work that you're doing. I think it's really important work, and I'm glad you're out there doing it. And really, I appreciate you taking the time to answer my questions when they come up, and taking the time to share with our Air Force Chaplain Corps about the ABSR. And so I just appreciate you, sir, and thank you. For those who are still on, thank you for attending. I dropped my email in the chat if you have additional questions, and I also dropped the link to the SharePoint. So this is where we will post this video after we scrub it up and edit it. It'll be available in probably a week or so, in case you want to rewatch it or share it with your friends in the Chaplain Corps. So that's it. I'm signing off. Thank you, sir. Again, appreciate it. If you got any questions for me, I'm looking forward to chatting afterwards. Otherwise, everyone have a great week, and have a great weekend. See ya.